Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I know people are still jumping in. So while we get started, if you wouldn't mind, just in the bottom of your screen, there's like a little Q&A section. If you could just put where you're from, where you're joining us from, we'd love to see where everyone's coming from. West Palm, yes. Local. Martin County, West Palm. West Palm, yes, that's awesome. West Palm is representing today. We have Deerfield. Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. I am Kayla Jackson. I am the Director of Development with the Hands and Feet. And so our mission of why we got started was to provide essential items to children and families with open child welfare cases so that they can know the support of a caring and loving community. And from there, we got our vision, which is we strive to be the hands and feet that deliver resources to all children and families impacted by the child welfare system. So, as we're celebrating our 5 years together, we don't want to just talk about why we do what we do. We want you guys to kind of see in action what we're doing. And so, in our next slide, we're going to show a short video that kind of shares the heart behind the hands and feet and the real lives that you guys support.
Hands and Feet is essentially DoorDash for foster care. We're providing tangible necessities directly to the doorstep of a child who has entered foster care or is at risk of entering foster care. There are so many misconceptions. There is no one to stand in the gap to help these children and these families, and that is why we exist.
I think I assumed that the state was taking care of these kids, but what we saw was kids were placed with nothing. We are feeling the need of basic necessities for them to just have what they need to get through a night, get through the day.
So we're taking items that have been donated by the community, we are purchasing new items, and we are packing that delivery specifically for that child. And they are taking them and delivering them directly to the family's doorstep. And that all happens within 48 hours.
I think the community has been one of the most beautiful parts of this. For many of these families, they've been on their own trying to figure it out. What the bag of clothes or the things that we drop off says, hey, there's people who care about you, there's people who love you, and there's people who want to help you. You're not forgotten.
And now we're going to get to hear from our co founder and executive director, Bailey Hughes.
Hi, guys. So many of you already know who I am, but if you have not met me, my name is Bailey Hughes. I am the executive director and the co-founder of the Hands and Feet, which is wild to think that we are 5 years from when we started. It feels like it's been a century and also that it was yesterday. Many of you may know how we started, but if you don't, let me just give you a little bit of history. So back in 2021, my husband and I closed our foster license after 5 years of fostering in Palm Beach County. Over those 5 years, we had 23 children that were brought into our home, and we adopted four of them, those four little ones in the middle picture who are much bigger now. And we really recognized that after we closed our home, there was still this huge gap and this huge need. And while we could no longer bring children into our home, I just could not walk away from the foster care system because of how much it impacted my life and our family's life. And so my sister, Michaela, who's also our co-founder, she lived with us at the time. And I came to her with an idea and said, do you have any idea if you would want to maybe start a project with me? And begrudgingly, she said yes. But we started the Hands and Feet by thinking about how could we tangibly help the children that were coming into the system. Now, there's a lot of problems with the system. However, there is no way for us to fix all of those problems. We were not going to fix the brokenness of what it is, but what is one area that we could help? And in 2021, it was still the height of COVID. You could get everything DoorDash to your front door, but why couldn't you get items that were delivered for children that were entering the system or impacted by the system? So we created this idea of let's provide those items and drop them to the doorstep of a family in need. I had had children that are real children in these photos. One had come with an evidence bag with nothing other than just a few medical supplies. This other little guy on the side came at 11 p.m. after sleeping on the floor of a DCF office and had absolutely nothing but a torn up t-shirt and a diaper, and came with a Publix bag filled with one diaper and another ripped up shirt. And I had to scrounge in the closet at 11 p.m. in order to find the items that he needed. And I knew there had to be a better way. So what we did is we created this model. Now our model is our bread and butter of what Hands and Feet does. Essentially, a child is in need. That could be a child that is impacted by the child welfare system in any capacity. We don't just serve foster families. We serve biological families who are at risk of having their children enter the system. We serve relatives who have taken in a child or have had a child for a prolonged period of time. And we also helped aged out foster youth who are aging out of the system, may have families of their own, or are in need of items for themselves. And of course, foster families, licensed families like my husband and I were. So when that child is in need, we have a request form that is filled out with every item that that child needs. And then our staff are packing those items and they're delivered to that family within 48 hours. This model was one that we created back in 2021 and is still the exact way that we function today. But how do we make that happen? Well, it is wild to think that when we started, it was really just me and Michaela pulling things from foster closets and things from our closet and other items that we could get donated and delivering them ourselves. But today, 5 years later, we have 9 staff, which is just beyond incredible. So Michaela, Sierra, and Kayla, they are all on our executive side. They're all running things in the background, helping make sure those programs run. But many of you who use our organization probably are more familiar with all of our site directors and our delivery drivers or assistant site directors. Michelle and TK, they really run the Palm Beach branch. Stephanie is just incredible and runs our Treasure Coast, and Katie and Cindy are the ones that are doing Broward. These individuals, especially these 5 at the bottom of the chart, are the ones who are really making sure that those needs are met every single day. And we are so incredibly appreciative of them because their heart and their passion really helps us make what Hands and Feet is today. But there's a lot of history to where we have started and where we have come from. So of course, on June 30th, it was technically the very first day that we launched Hands and Feet. It started because we had worked with a licensing agency for kids, and we said, whenever you make a placement with a child, could you please let us know if they need anything? So our very first encounter was at 10:45 at night with the placement coordinator, who sent us a text and said, I'm placing 3 children. It's a 17-year-old who's pregnant with her 1-year-old son and her 13-year-old sister. They were human trafficked from Guatemala and they were left in a parking lot. And so this was the very first opportunity that we got to serve a family. We gathered everything that we could. The only store that was open past 11 p.m. was CVS. So we went in there, we purchased everything that we could on our own personal cards and hoped that it would work out, and delivered everything that we could to this family past midnight that night. Then we went to Facebook and social media and we reached out and said, hey, did you know that this just happened in your community? Could you help us with donations? Could you help us with financial assistance? Could you help us with an Amazon wish list? And we watched as these people in the community came together to make this a reality. And that is really where we saw the community wants to help, but they just don't know how. So that's when Hands and Feet launched. And 2 weeks later, we received an email from a stranger at the time named Kristen West, who was a foster parent at the time in Treasure Coast. She said, I really want to bring this here. And my theory was, we already didn't know what we were doing, so let's not know what we're doing together. And Treasure Coast finally launched 2 weeks after we had launched in Palm Beach County. Now, mind you, we had no bank account. We had no plan. We had no idea what we were doing. We had no nonprofit status. We had applied and we were working through that, but we were just going on a passion to change our community. In July of 2021, we launched our Wishlister program, which has been absolutely incredible to this day, of how many thousands of dollars have been purchased for that wish lister program. And it gave us the opportunity, because we didn't have warehouse space at the time, for people to purchase items and send them to families directly. Packages like these showed up at our doorstep and families' doorsteps constantly. I think at one point my children thought that Amazon pretty much lived at our house, but still to this day, when those packages come, they always ask, is this for a foster child or is this for us? Even though we have spaces that things get shipped to now. By September, we already had our very first news segment. And by November, we had already made our 100th delivery. Now, mind you, we were all volunteers. We had no operating space. We were functioning out of foster closets that we were utilizing and wish lists. And it was kind of wild that we had made 100 deliveries by November. In December, we realized that we were just completely expanding out of our garages. So we were able to get 2 storage units that were donated, one in Boca and one in Broward, in order for us to continue operations. Now, we had already launched at this point in 5 counties, the 4 counties in the Treasure Coast and Palm Beach. But Diana Galfand and Katie Wood really had this passion that they wanted to open a Broward County branch. So in January of 2022, that's what happened. They launched their branch, and it has been just incredible since then. In February of 2022, we launched our Guiding Hands program, which assisted aged out foster youth with tangible necessities. And in May of 2022, we had one of the most pivotal moments that really helped us skyrocket and get to where we are today. We started a partnership with Place of Hope, which ironically began because of an Instagram post that caught the attention of the CEO of Place of Hope, who wanted us to start working with them in the Treasure Coast because they had acquired a campus there. So we were able to actually move into 3 permanent locations, one in Palm Beach Gardens, one in Stewart, and a space in Boca. And with their support, we were also able to hire 1 full-time staff member and 2 part-time staff members, taking us from a volunteer-only organization to more of one that had staff and was able to be more functional. By this point, we knew we needed to do some fundraising. So in June, we started our Voices of the System. By September, we were also being featured in media again. In December, we hosted our very first annual Shopping with Santa event that is really crucial to the families that we serve each and every year. In 2023, we really started to get some traction from our local leadership. So we were able to be chosen as a Leadership Engage project, and they were able to help us do an open house. Now, this open house was so huge for us because it really helped people in the community, especially in Palm Beach County, really know who we were and why we existed. And our name really started to spread. In August of 23, it was the first time that we got a large grant that allowed us to hire even more staff. So at that point, we went from 3 staff to about 5 staff, which really increased the amount of families that we were able to serve. In November of 23, we were able to make it on national television for a segment that we were able to record the year prior, which gave us even more traction in the community. Now move on to April of 2024. 2024 was a hard year. In all honesty, it was almost the year that we shut our doors. But when we look back at this timeline, it's kind of crazy to see how much we did in 2024, despite wondering if we were even going to make it into the next year. I had the honor and privilege to be honored by Governor DeSantis for the creation of Hands and Feet as a Florida hero and go to the governor's mansion. We did a huge DCF playroom makeover, which has now become something that is so crucial and important in part of our communities. And in September, we completely overhauled the infrastructure of how our Supporting Hands and referral system works. I would never, ever, ever suggest doing 2 major technology programs at the same time and revamping them. That could also be why we almost closed our doors, because it was one of the hardest things that we have ever done, but it is really what has allowed us to be able to expand and go forward. In October of 24, we were able to go to Washington, D.C. as Sierra was honored as a finance person in our organization and get a national award. We also won 2 regional awards. And we really just realized that even though this year was so hard, the work that we were doing was so important, and people were recognizing that. In December, one of the most incredible things happened. We had been striving so hard to purchase a cargo van. It was desperately needed. And we had fundraised and we had worked, and it was so difficult. But finally, a business was able to help us make this possible. So Al Packer Ford donated financially to this, and we were able to make this as well with our Giving Tuesday funds. Now move on to 2025. At this point, we're almost 4 years in. We feel like we got this. We feel like things are going to be great. And fortunately, 2025 was really just an incredible year. We raised a historic $43,000 at our revamped Voices of the System, which I think really helped a lot of us just realize how many people in the community really are passionate about this. In June of 2025, Broward finally moved out of those storage units. They functioned in those storage units for over 3 years, fully operating only out of 2 storage units. And they actually got their own permanent space, which has just really revitalized Broward. In September, we were able to do a Broward Playroom makeover, which completely transformed the way that children are coming into the system in Broward. And in November, we launched our Waves of Healing program. If you're not familiar with it, it provides financial assistance to children who have been adopted from the foster care system by giving them a $10,000 grant to pay for mental health care. We were able to choose 3 families for this pilot year, and we're really hoping to expand that in the years to come. Now 2026, which is where we're at now, we were able to purchase a delivery vehicle for Broward, something else that was so important. We were able to hire Kayla because of grant funding from Children's Services Council. February was when we chose those 3 families. And in May, we were featured on a Shining a Light segment for WPTV. Now, all of this is a lot of history, and I'm sure you're probably tired of hearing me talk about all of it, but I think it boils down to this number right here. This is our chart from inception, and this is everybody that has been served in every county across the board. Now you'll see some big spikes. Those big spikes are typically from the holidays when we serve our families through our Shopping with Santa event. But if you notice, we're still on an upward trend. And over the last 5 years, we have served over 13,000 children, which is incredible. After doing some deep dive of numbers this morning, we hit our 10,000th child served in July of 2025, which is beyond incredible. I think this goes to show that when you have a passion and a dream and you really work towards it and you have the right amount of people on your team and a community who believes in you, you can honestly make anything happen. And it's just wild to sit here today. If you notice and you've ever been on a meeting with me, the background of my space looks a little bit different. It's because we actually got to move into an admin space about a week ago. So we have actual offices, which is just absolutely incredible and hugely important for us to continue this organization and continue to serve children for the next 5, 10, 15 years plus. So enough of me talking. This video is for those of you who want to see what it's really like for a family to receive services. This family was actually served less than a month ago, and they were able to share their testimony of how Hands and Feet really helped them.
The call came about 10:30 at night, and we'd only been licensed for 5 days.
And it was one of those moments where everything suddenly becomes real. They told us there was a John Doe newborn. He was only 10 days old, and he was an emergency placement.
There wasn't any immediate family ready to take him, so we just looked at each other and said yes.
And honestly, from that moment on, our lives completely changed.
By around 12:30 in the morning, he was at our front door.
He arrived in a tiny onesie, wrapped in a swaddle, with 4 ready-made bottles and maybe a dozen diapers. That was everything he came with.
We were excited, but also realizing very quickly, okay, we are not prepared for a newborn.
A newborn was actually the one age group that we hadn't fully prepared for.
So that same morning, we were connected with the Hands and Feet organization, asking us what our needs were.
And by that afternoon, it honestly felt like an entire baby shower had been dropped off at our doorstep.
It was unbelievable.
They showed up with everything: onesies, outfits, pajamas, swaddles, diapers, wipes, a swing, even a tummy time play gym.
Things we didn't even realize we were going to need.
We went from having almost nothing to suddenly feeling equipped and supported enough to truly care for him with confidence and love.
And in that moment, that could have felt overwhelming. Hands and Feet made us feel like we weren't doing it alone.
And that support meant everything to us. Honestly, it still does. Thank you, Hands and Feet.
So now I have the privilege of introducing you to our board chair, Megan Huma Mitchell, who will be sharing a little bit about our organization and how the board plays a factor in the Hands and Feet.
Hi, everybody. I'm Megan. I might be the least recognizable face to you on this call. If you've worked with the Hands and Feet at all, you've probably worked with Bailey, Kayla, Michaela, Sierra. But I've worked with the Hands and Feet for about 3 years now as the board chair. I love this organization so much. In my regular day-to-day work, I have the opportunity to work with a lot of nonprofits. And I can say with full honesty, this is my absolute favorite. I just think that the pragmatism and drive of everyone in this team is so incredible. It's a very fittingly hands-on group of people who just don't care about ego or prestige. They just are here to get the work done. And man, do they get the work done. So I'm very excited to be here with you all today. So just to give a very quick introduction of the board, I'm not going to go through everybody here. That could be its whole own webinar. I think it's a very impressive group of people, but we're a board of 9. Everybody on the board is a volunteer, and it really is an incredible group of people. Most of the board is Florida-based, but there are a couple who are outside of that. And these are people who just really love to give their time and energy and resources and connections. Boards sometimes have a reputation that, oh, you show up at a gala and you sip a cocktail and you talk to another donor. That is not the case of the Hands and Feet board. This is a group of people who can get things done. We all have regular meetings, we run committees, we are part of events, and any person here can give you the entire pitch for Hands and Feet. And if they come to the board with an idea, they are then ready to execute that idea. It's a very fun group of people to get to join alongside. The Hands and Feet really would not be possible without volunteers. As Bailey said, we started out as an entirely volunteer organization, and you might have heard everything that was shared in the webinar up until this point and thought, how is it at all possible that 9 staff members can do this work? And the answer is that they cannot. This work is done with so many volunteers, 1,500 over the last 5 years. Volunteering with the Hands and Feet can look like a whole bunch of different things. Most typically, it looks like making deliveries and sorting through donations. So one of the things I think really sets the Hands and Feet apart is really the quality of the donations that we provide to our families. And volunteers are a huge part of making that happen, making sure that things are in the right condition to be able to be shared and to really bring that level of home and pride and joy to what is delivered. And of course, deliveries can be a really tough role. Some of you on this call may have been part of that, part of the volunteer program. Deliveries are often to really rough neighborhoods. They can be to challenging situations. You never quite know what you're going to walk into when you make a delivery. And our volunteers in that space are really the face of the Hands and Feet. And they're coming in and they're bringing that hug and warm smile and welcome. And those are the people who represent us on the ground. And we really couldn't be more proud or thankful for our volunteers. An incredible group of people. Another way that people get involved with the Hands and Feet is by becoming a business sponsor. For those of you who've been around for a while now, a lot of these names are going to look really familiar to you. Hands and Feet tends to attract long-term partners. That's something I really appreciate about the way the relationships are built here. Once people get involved, they do tend to stay involved, and how could you not once you get connected to this mission? Business partners do all kinds of things from promotion to donation drives to help sending groups of volunteers, recurring revenue donations, all of the kinds of things, especially when it comes to the playrooms. We've had a lot of partners in that space. So we are incredibly grateful for our business sponsors. Another connection point is with nonprofits and churches. Bailey already mentioned that one of the first connections was with Place of Hope, who has generously provided space for us for all of these years. But churches and nonprofit partners really make a huge, huge difference for us in the community, especially when it comes to the visibility of the Hands and Feet. Many of these organizations have given Bailey a platform to come and speak and to share. Others have also hosted drives, sent volunteers. Really, these are amazing community groups of people who are looking for practical ways to get involved in their communities. And these connection points just really continue to propel us forward. So long list of grant partners here. I'm not going to bore you with reading through all of them, but Bailey mentioned in our timeline that first grant coming through. Well, it was the first of many grants. We are so grateful for donations. Donations are a huge part of how we support the work that we do, but grants are also a big part of that, especially when it comes to significant key initiatives, things like buying the cargo van or the playrooms or larger drives. Grant partners are absolutely incredible for that. Kayla, who you got to hear from a little bit at the beginning, is hired through a grant partnership. These organizations are really, really pivotal to providing that foundational base for what we do. And donation drives. This is going to be an even smaller list. And I hope that by the time we have our 10-year webinar, you just will not be able to read this slide at all because this is such a heart of what we do. Donation drives are hosted at churches. They're hosted at gyms. They're hosted in community groups, book clubs, just groups of friends and family who are gathering with each other. And, you know, if you were to look around your house right now, especially if you're someone who has or has had kids in your home, you can probably think of a bunch of items that would be valuable to someone else. Especially with kids items, we tend to go through them quickly. They don't have a long lifespan in our own homes. And this can be an incredible way to get involved and just really give back in a very sustainable way. Donation drives are what powers things like our Shopping with Santa event that has been mentioned towards the end of the year, but they also sustain us all year long for those thousands and thousands of deliveries that are taking place.
So before we continue to move forward, we want to invite you next week to actually step inside our mission. So we are actually hosting 3 open houses, one in Broward, one in Treasure Coast, and one in Palm Beach. Now, these are very informal. We have no agenda other than come and meet our staff, come and see our space. Me and Kayla and other staff members will be there and be present. The doors are open from 11 to 1, and we really just want to give you an opportunity to come into any of these spaces to be able to see what it is that we do on a daily basis. All of our staff will be there actually actively working. So if you want to see what it looks like to pack a referral or the items that we have our doors open for you, and we would love for you to come. Now, as we continue throughout the rest of the webinar, we're getting kind of towards the end. So if you have any questions that have come up throughout this webinar, just drop them in the chat. We're going to have a Q&A at the end, and we would love for you to just ask any question that you would like. They are anonymous, so we will see who wrote the question, but we will not call out your name. So feel free to drop any questions that you may have so that we can have an opportunity to answer those for you. This as well is on our website, and we will make sure that it gets sent out too so that you can see that where the locations are, the times, the dates, and it is also on our social media on Facebook and on Instagram. So we really talked about the past, right? We talked about the last 5 years and where we started and where we came from and how we've gotten to this point. But what is our vision for the future? Now, a lot of times, a lot of people's visions for their future are huge and big and magnificent, but we've realized that the way to get from where we want to go, from where we are at to where we want to go, is by taking smaller steps and being realistic in what we can do. If you noticed during this, Palm Beach was really the place that we focused on in the beginning. And then we pivoted to Broward County. Now, something that wasn't mentioned in here is that Broward County recently just received the biggest grant that we have ever received in the history. And it is almost $50,000 to provide support to our Broward County branch. This came from just believing that what we were doing was important and just connecting with the right people in the community. It is beyond incredible to us that someone would trust us at this point, but we know that it is not just Palm Beach and Broward that is going to be able to get us to where we need to go. If you've noticed, we haven't done a playroom revamp in the Treasure Coast, and we are still lacking a third delivery vehicle. So our goal for the future is to be able to purchase a vehicle that we can utilize in the Treasure Coast or be able to utilize throughout the other counties and make sure that we are meeting those tangible needs. Now, a delivery vehicle doesn't have to look like a cargo van. We actually purchased a mid-size SUV for Broward, and it has been perfect. It's amazing to have a cargo van for Palm Beach because we pick up a ton of donations from our warehouse, but Honestly, having that delivery vehicle for our third location of Stewart would be just such an incredible pivotal moment for us. And we've actually already been asked twice to do a DCF playroom revamp in the Treasure Coast. Now, this costs a lot of money to do, and it costs a lot of effort to do as well. So we're hoping to do this in 2027, and we've already received some verbal commitments to helping us make that happen. But we want to just make this be one of the best playrooms that is there, because the Treasure Coast oftentimes, may not get the same support as some of the other counties that we serve. And we talked about Waves of Healing. Well, Waves of Healing, we were only able to fund 3 families in 2026, and we would really love to increase that to 6 families. So these are pretty tangible goals. We feel like we could really meet most of these goals in 2027, but we really need your help. So how can you do that? We want to build our organization, and you can do that by becoming a monthly donor. Now, we've calculated the cost, we've figured out all the finances, and we've determined that if we can get 40 monthly donors at only $30 a month, we can make these goals happen. So if you feel led, feel free to scan the QR code or go to the URL and be able to sign up to become a monthly donor. Your monthly donations are helping us meet this goal, as well as continuing to support the efforts that we're doing. So it's a lot of talking and a lot of words, but we are going to keep it on this screen. And we would love for you to just drop any more questions that you have in the chat. Sierra, who is our director of finance, has compiled some of those questions. And so she's going to be asking those, and we will be answering between me, Megan, and Kayla those questions. And if you have more, feel free to drop them in and we'll get going. So Sierra, do you have any questions so far that have been in the chat?
Yes, I have one question. What is one item that is frequently asked for?
So car seats are on it. Car seats and shoes are usually the things that we get asked for a lot. Now, car seats can really, you could have a child up to 7 or 8 years old that is still in a booster seat, and those are hard to come by. If you think about your child in their car seat, a lot of times they're not in great condition by the time you're done with them. And so it's hard for us to get quality car seats. Shoes are also one of the number one things that are always asked for. Typically, every single delivery as well includes clothing, as well as socks and underwear. That is something that pretty much goes out with every single delivery.
Another question, can you touch on Waves of Healing and what all we do?
Yes. So Waves of Healing was created because we knew that the support that was given to post-adoptive families was not great. Now, you will hear there is post-adoption support, there is a financial stipend, the children get Medicaid. However, Medicaid providers have long wait lists. There was a research project that was recently done in Palm Beach County that from the moment a referral went in for a child to the time frame of when that child was seen was over 50 days. If you are in crisis with a child and you have a Medicaid provider, you are waiting typically 50 days to be seen. That is almost 2 months. That is not acceptable. Now, out-of-pocket providers, you can almost get in the next week, or even times that I've had the next day. And so you're getting that support, but those cost dollars out of pocket. So right now, the only thing that we are doing with Waves of Healing is we are funding families with that grant. In 2027, that is also our goal of what we are going to do as well, is that we are funding families. We would love to increase that from 3 families to 6 families. The criteria is that you must have adopted a child, reside in the counties that we service, and the child must be adopted from foster care.
And one more question, what is our biggest need?
Kayla, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, I think our biggest need is really just more people who are sharing, who we are out with those in the community, but then also those coming alongside us with like financial donations, like we're talking about the monthly donors, and just coming in to support us because, through all of that and having that constant support, we're able to continue to do what we're doing, and then also fulfill the projects that we're hoping to do in the next year. So yeah. Do you have any more questions?
I can go through a few more if you want.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. What is the most common area that referrals come from or person?
So the people that are placing referrals are typically case managers and CPIs. Child protective investigators are the number one people who typically place referrals. However, we are self-referral. So if you have access to our website, which anyone has access to, you should be able to go on and place a referral. Now, here's the caveat. We must confirm that the case is open. So if we do have someone that comes in and they do not have DCF involvement, we make sure that we're verifying that. So that is a question we get a lot is how do you verify it? Well, we ask them who is their case manager. We reach out to them. We confirm that that is something that we are making sure that that person's case is open. But we have a slew of people that place in referrals as well, whether that is individuals, case managers, investigators, but I would say DCF is probably our number one referral system.
How do you measure success in terms of the programs?
So we measure success in how many deliveries that we're able to do. If you look at this picture here, you can see the items that are dropped off. We are actually in the midst of actually compiling all of the delivery photos that we've had over the course of, the last few years. And it is really amazing at how many doorsteps we've been to. I think when we get the question of what sets us apart, it's the fact that we deliver. You can be stressed out beyond measure with a child that shows up at your doorstep, or you can be a biological family who doesn't have transportation and you're still able to get the access to the items that you need. So not only that, but are we meeting our 48-hour metric? Are we able to provide for the items that the families need? It's very crucial to us that if they ask for a car seat, we don't have a car seat, we're purchasing that. So the grants that we get, the financial donations we get, we're utilizing those oftentimes to be able to purchase the items that the family needs.
And the last question, what does our operating budget look like?
So we have about over $1 million in our operating budget from 2025. Now, to break that down, about 500,000 comes from in-kind goods and services. That looks like in-kind rent because we receive two storage units that are donated to us. So we don't pay that rent, and we receive our Stewart location, and then our West Palm Beach location is through Place of Hope. And so those rents we pay a very nominal fee, and that is helping us, essentially it's a significant amount of in-kind rent, but then every item that you see in our warehouse is donated. So we actually started this year a very hefty inventory system where we are counting the items every single time a referral goes out, as well as going into our centers and keeping a record of the items that we have as well. So from a cash perspective, we are about half of that $1 million budget.
Thank you. There are a few that have wrote in the Q&A just thanking us. An anonymous attendee said, as a former kid from foster care, I love your mission and all you do for your community. Taking your organization from a foster closet into a full service organization serving youth in foster care and foster families, as well as adopted families, is amazing. I hope other organizations can learn from what you have done in such a short time.
Well, thank you. That means a lot to us. And we are striving to do the best that we can, but we could not do it without our community. Anything else in the chat, Sierra? No. Okay. Well, we are going to wrap this all up and not keep you. We thank you so much for joining us on a Wednesday afternoon. This will be recorded, so it will be going out if you have someone that wants to watch it and hear what we're doing. We really, really highly suggest that you follow us on social media. We are on Facebook, we are on Instagram, and we really post a lot of things. So we're going to continue this month of going through our history. June 30th is technically that 5-year mark. And so we're really celebrating this whole month of June. And we just cannot say thank you enough for joining us today and being here for us. So Thank you so much. And we look forward to hopefully seeing you in our, I'm going to go back to this slide in case you didn't see it. Next week, June 15th in Broward, June 16th in Treasure Coast, and June 17th in Palm Beach. We will be there and hope to see you. Thank you so much.